Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the HR panel. Today, we are discussing the topic 1 year on from COVID-19, positive and negative changes experienced within the gaming workforce. This is obviously a very relevant topic at the moment, as all our organizations are going through big changes and going from working in the office to working remotely. What does that mean for the organizations? What does that mean for the individuals? And how do we predict that this will unfold as we go forward? I would like to start off by just mentioning that the chat here to the right is active. So if you have any questions to the panel, feel free to submit. I will get them in a feed to me on my laptop, which I have right next to me. And if we feel that there are some interesting questions, we'll lift those up here live together with you. So I would like everyone to introduce themselves first of all. So Heidi, feel free to start.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Heidi Lofthus, the HR director at ComeOn Group. Having worked with Marie and Fiona for quite a few years now. Been living in Malta for over 10 years. Coming to Malta over 10 years ago, I set up Redbet from scratch, the Maltese division. So this is where my HR career started, getting all the papers, getting all the people, whilst also having worked very operationally. So coming from the business, sliding into the HR area, and this is what I do now full time with my fantastic team that is spread out in several locations within Europe. Running a team of 550-ish people across locations like London, Stockholm, northern Sweden, Istanbul, Gibraltar, Malta, Poland. This is us. We're a big company.
Great. Marie.
Hi, I'm Marie. I'm the Chief People Officer at IGaming. I consider myself to be relatively new to the industry. I joined IGaming 2.5 years ago, and before that I've worked in quite a few different industries, starting from manufacturing, banking, hospitality, and tech. This is quite a different industry, a fun industry, but very intense, very agile, very fast. So I've learned a lot in my 2.5 years within the industry and within IGaming. I've also, as Heidi said, we've closely collaborated between the gaming companies for a while now, and I think that's also been quite an interesting journey. So happy to be here.
Okay, Fiona.
Hi, I'm Fiona Ewins Brown, Chief HR Officer at Catena Media. So similar type of background to Marie in that Katana is actually the first company I've worked at in the gaming industry, coming up to 5 years now with Katana, which is a lifetime. And prior to that, worked in predominantly finance, large finance global organizations in Australia, the UK, and also a bit of tech as well. So, and again, kind of mirroring what both Heidi and Marie have said, in terms of the collaboration, and obviously, yes, we have, offices around the world. And this is, interesting times for all of us right now.
Interesting times to say the least, I would say. And I would say to start this off, just to reiterate, the most interesting thing that I find in moving remote now is all the Zoom calls and all the communication that we have amongst the teams now. And I must say, what I'm most excited about is all the home decor inspiration that I'm getting from all these Zoom calls. And I can see that you all are into art with the nice paintings behind you, all of you, especially you, Heidi. You have a nice map behind you. Very nice.
Yes, and it's very fancy with the buttons
yes,
as well.
Yes. I like it. Okay, let's kick this off. So obviously, about 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, everything happened very, very quick in the sense that from a couple of days, almost over the day, the larger organizations had the question on the table: how can we go remote now? Not in 1 month time. How can we go remote now? And obviously now 2 months later, we could see that all the organizations were able to do that successfully. But what are your findings so far about your organizations going remote? Positives and negatives. And I would like to hear Fiona start with this.
You're right, Pierre. I mean, it was instantaneous in terms of the decision that needed to be taken. We've obviously all been in a situation where there's been a lot of talk around: can we operate remotely? Can we hire people in other locations? Hiring people into Malta is becoming more and more difficult. Do all the teams need to physically be in the office? And there've been discussions that we've been having for quite some time. And I think there had always been question marks about productivity, about engagement, about culture, about a number of different things, and even just hiring people and being able to onboard them with them being remote. And then overnight, we needed to put everyone, obviously in that situation, and tell everyone to actually, work from their home offices. We as a company do actually have our entire US operation is remote. We acquired the US business a couple of years ago and then have grown it since then, and they are remote. But all of our other teams are based in the office. So we have a little bit of a hybrid setup in that anyway. And what we found, was that we could, from 1 minute to the next, have everyone working remotely. We were very lucky that we have the tech set up in order to be able to do that, and to do that very, very quickly. What we found is surprising. The productivity, the engagement, the culture, all the things that we were slightly concerned about with having remote teams have excelled. We are seeing, stronger results now than we have seen for the last, almost 12 months in a number of areas. And, we are tracking that and monitoring that, and the collaboration and, the results that we're seeing are fantastic. And I think, what we're being mindful of is that's not just because people are working from home. It is a strange situation at the moment as well, obviously with COVID, and that, that is impacting some of those results as well. But on the whole, we are very positive with what we are seeing. In terms of negatives, the things that we're watching out for is a lot of people do live on their own. We do have a lot of people that are single, so living on your own and not getting to socialize. People are lacking that, so we're trying to fill that gap with a number of other things that we've set up, different initiatives and things that we've set up outside of the office. And we are also trying to make sure that people don't work too long and burn themselves out and get too stressed. So that's just a quick overview, I suppose, of the positives and the negatives so far. Great.
What about you, Heidi, over at the ComeOn Group? How has this experience been for you guys?
Well, it started off early March when we started testing. This was on a Friday. Everyone to be working from home to check the technical setup. Could we actually manage this technically? VPN sort outs, etc. And that's one of the impressive things that I saw. Very, very small obstacles. Again, someone might not have had a VPN. Those people not having internet at home, we would send them dongles. And then just after that, we offered and started recommending people to start working from home. So this is from our Malta office. In Sweden, it was also a more soft approach. Sweden was never really locked down. So all our offices have been open and available to our employees, apart from London. This, in order for those that would definitely need to keep a daily routine, to go to the office, maybe they have not a good physical setup at home, or a family being very disturbing, or just again, to keep the routine for mental health, to go to the office or even for printing. So we've seen that there are definitely the same and more than a handful of people going into the offices every day. And I think what Fiona said as well, like the technical setup was already there. So the key to this is being prepared, and luckily we have been prepared in many areas. So onboarding, this could over one night, we could go starting recruiting video calls, onboarding online. So the people that we have hired being in different countries, they're still there. The logistics was obviously an administrational hassle for us to send, or continue now as well, sending hardware, etc., to those joining the company and also leaving. So there's a lot of positives. We see a lot of engagement. We see that people feel like they have a very good connection with their managers, with their team members. People feel highly productive. We just ran a survey and it's still going on, actually. So the voice from the people is very important here. The negatives, and this is what we have prepared for, both mentally, but also how are we as an organization going to keep up with, as has been mentioned in this, in an already very fast industry. Obviously, sitting here in front of my laptop, not going out having a coffee with my people on the floor, having a chit chat before I go into next meeting to sort of calm down, I would jump from one meeting into the other, so it becomes even faster, which is very productive. But I would see that long term, this could have a negative effect in terms of stress, and where we have been prepared for not the worst, but for an increase in mental health. I think that just now things are opening up in Europe. Countries are starting to have releases. So just when we're supposed to hit rock bottom in terms of mental health, or people start giving up, we would actually start seeing light in the tunnel, which is very needed at this time. So it makes it very clear that this is actually a time period, even if it's a very stretched out one. I would compare it to the disease itself. You get sick over a day or a couple of days, but it takes a long time to recover. So again, we went home, we locked down our offices and went home over the night or over a couple of weeks, but it will take 10 times more than that to get back to the offices.
Yeah, thank you, Heidi. And what about you, Marie, over at Hero Gaming?
Yes, I think I can agree with both Fiona and Heidi. We've also experienced a very good level of productivity. We've actually, we sent out a couple of surveys to our employees, and we did ask them a question: how productive do you feel on week 1? And we asked it to them again on week 5, and the score increased, which was quite surprising, because my initial thought before receiving the second batch of results, I would have thought that people would have gone from, being very excited, having that adrenaline rush of working from home and making it work. But I also feared that it would plateau at a certain point. But in our case, it hasn't yet. I think there's been a lot of positives that came out of it. There were a lot of lessons learned as well. We have seen collaboration really improving. And, in reality, when you're speaking to someone on video chat, you're inviting them into your house in some form of virtual way, something you wouldn't do when you're in the office. So it does create that form of a relationship that you wouldn't be able to maybe build in another environment. I think people have also been able to work distraction free. They've been able to focus. more. I think people are also happy with not having to commute and not having the morning rush or of having to take the children to school and so on and so forth. So there has been a lot of positives as well. Also, when I look at how fast people embraced certain new technologies and how fast they've engaged with new technologies. And I think these practices will live on. You know, these are skills that we are developing, we are learning, and we are gaining more muscle to work to continue working virtually in the future. But I think people do generally miss being around people, and this is one of the biggest challenges. I mean, this morning I was having a conversation with my team, and in our Sweden office, people are actually requesting to come back to work. And, you know, as such, they can go back to work because there are no restrictions in Sweden. And there can be up to 50 people in one space. But then, obviously, there is the question on our responsibility as an employer. So there is currently a discussion on how we're going to be pacing that transition. I think I would say locally in Malta, that transition will be slower. In Sweden, it might be a little bit faster, but we need to make sure, obviously, that we take all the health precautions that we need to take to safeguard the employees. I think there are people, and there have been people struggling. You know, Heidi mentioned mental health. There are people who suffer from mental health problems. There are people who are lonely and are suffering from mental health problems, and there are parents who are struggling. You know, it is not an easy time, but I think it has been an opportunity for us to learn a lot, and we've always spoken about working remotely. Especially with the skeptics and the ones who challenged us the most. And I think there's more knowledge around it now. So we've learned, it's been a learning process for all of us, I think.
Yeah, a very quickly forced on us learning process.
Yes, for sure.
but a good one.
That's true. Heidi, you mentioned that people are kind of very close to hitting kind of like rock bottom in the sense that, you know, people's moods are starting to kind of go down a little bit the last few weeks. And that's certainly something that I have noticed as well. I'm in a lot of different Zoom meetings and Skype meetings on a daily basis. And I noticed this, I think, last week or the week before that people kind of seemed a little bit more down in general. You mentioned that now kind of there is a little bit of a light in the end of the tunnel, so to say, that restrictions are being loosened a little bit here and there. Here in Malta yesterday, the certain shops are now able to operate again, and we saw a lot more people being outside and hanging out again, so to say. Are you worried that if there would be a second wave of infections and the restrictions are being imposed again, are you worried that that would have an even worse effect on your workforce?
First, me referring to rock bottom, I'm using that term because now we've been at home for 2 months with a quite clear, when is this going to end? And only during the last couple of days, it's starting to, you can actually feel it. You can go out in a different way. You can meet people in a different way. And I've monitored my own mood and productivity in some way, or engagement in family or personal life or work quite closely. And it's been quite interesting, like when it's only getting worse and worse and numbers are increasing, and now this country is also closing down, when there is no time frame and you can't relate, you can run the marathon, but I'm not running another meter. Then after the marathon is over, like what happens then? And that's where we are now. Like, I did it, I'm close, we can continue. And having tested that, and also knowing that it being time capped, but now we have tested this. So would it come a second wave? I think it will not be as bad. I think we can act faster if we didn't act fast enough the first time, which I think we did. But we would understand that it is a time that we need to do this and then go back. I can't say if the second wave is going to be greater, but we would know, because we have experienced it and lived in it, that there will be an end to it. Drawn out, but organically, slowly, we will return to a new normal. I don't think it will be as bad as the first one.
Okay, do you guys agree with that, Fiona, Marie?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, I think it will be a bit demoralizing. Kind of for people seeing, like Heidi said, seeing that kind of end of the tunnel is, approaching. To then, kind of have that shut down, and then to then not know when, kind of the next end of the tunnel is coming. I think it will be really demoralizing. And I think, I think mental health will become a little bit more of an issue for some people that, again, just think, kind of, I don't know whether I can do this again. So, yeah, it is concerning, which I think is why we need to be very careful around how quickly, as employers, we do, kind of return people to the various offices around the world as well. Our primary concern has to be people's health, both physical and mental.
Exactly. And I think we also need to assume that we will not go back to a normal that we know. It will be a new normal that we need to adapt to. And the transition will be slow. And I think we have responsibilities as an employer to make sure that that transition is slow, because we can be the ones to fuel, to start the fuel for a second wave, because we have so many people in open plans. Most offices have open plans, and obviously there is a risk. There is a risk to that. So we need to make sure that we take the precautionary measures. We, if need be, redesign some offices. I don't know, increase the numbers of time we're cleaning our offices. We disinfect. We prepare health kits if necessary. I think we need to also avoid in the transition, in the process of transitioning people back into the office. There will likely be some sort of rotation of a few number of people from teams being able to actually be in the office. So I think there are a number of aspects that we need to be responsible for as employers through this process.
Yeah, and as we now look forward into the future, like you said, Marie, there will be kind of a new normal that we will have to get used to, and both in the sense of the social distancing might continue for a very long time. There has been talks about that we might not go back to a normal situation for years even, but also in the sense that, as we have proven now through this experiment, if you will, that working remotely is something that works, and the kind of the doubters have been proven wrong in that sense. So there might be more a larger scale of the workforce that would want to work more remotely. So with that in mind, like as you start your exit strategies to get back into the offices, how do you see this developing? And do you even see the role of an office long term will be changing, perhaps, to something different, if that makes sense? What do you think, Marie?
I still am quite a believer in presence, and I think the office space will still remain an important space where we bring people together. We've always been quite flexible, and we've always sort of been okay with people working remotely. We actually have had people who work with us, who wanted to leave Malta, go back to their countries, and they have been working with us on a remote working agreement. And now we have employees in Stockholm, where we don't have offices, in Finland, in Austria, and Poland, UK. So yes, I mean, I don't exclude the fact that the requests will increase, but then again, I think with that as well, with employees who work with us and would like to stay with the company and would like to work from another country. I think with them, it's a little bit different because they've had the time to engage with the culture, they've engaged with the people, they know the teams. So, you know, it's much easier for them to connect with people remotely. And also, at this very point in time, we're all in the same level playing field, right? We're all working remotely. So I think the challenge here will come in where we have teams who are present in the office and discussing things as they go, and some individuals working remotely. So that will be another change that needs to be managed, obviously.
And what about you, Heidi? What are your thoughts in regards to
I was just going to say, we already have quite a lot of people working for various reasons in other locations, not being the office, which works well. Most of them have been with ComeOn for quite some time. So they're, to some extent, an integral part of the company, or their areas are focused on the market where they sit or similar. I agree with the fact that should we open up the possibility for everyone to start working from home in a way that is not now, because again, this is not an ordinary situation. Everyone is working from home. Everyone is playing on the same playing field. Employing new people now is with expectations that they would still come to the offices. We have lots of people having been recruited, sitting, waiting to go to London, Stockholm, Poland, Malta, to engage and to get into the culture with the rest of the team. So the office, again, it's not the technical requirements. That bridge we crossed years and years ago. That's not us. That's not us. But for us, the office is important for the sense of culture. This is where people meet each other, get to know each other, and start working for each other, which also extends the view on loyalty. You're not only working for the company, you're working for the people. I want to work with the people, my team. I'm sitting in the same office, so essentially I'm starting working for them as well. I want their job to be nice and fun, and we have good times together. And luckily, apart from a person joining my team today, we have all met. We do know each other in person, which is super important. So the offices, we have spent quite a lot of money in beautiful offices, and we're continuing doing that just for us to be there and meet. It's very important.
I think we also need to keep in mind here that this is not a normal, as Heidi said, it's not a normal remote working environment. So when companies work remotely, generally, they still can meet up with their teams every now and then. Or if you're recruiting somebody who's going to work remotely in the long term, assuming that travel will be allowed at the time, you know, they can always spend the first, 4 to 6 weeks in the office with the people, getting to know the people, getting to know the culture, getting to know the way things are done. So this is an exceptional situation we are in. So, is it challenging to engage people remotely? Yes, because it is a different kind of, it does require a different kind of mindset, I think, an organizational mindset. And I think it is possible, once we're out of this particular situation and people can actually meet, because if they can meet periodically, at least that's important too.
Exactly.
It is. Yeah.
Preferably, we meet in the offices in our locations where really, really required, or for that very specific role. We wouldn't hesitate in looking externally either.
But I would like to bring up a different perspective on this as well. Sorry to interrupt you, which is the fact that The Maltese government have made studies that have measured a 40% reduction in nitrogen dioxide in the air since this kind of semi-lockdown began in Malta, and they are now considering to give subsidies to employers who let their workforce work from home. Now, what my point is that as we now go forward into the future, I think we can all agree that our culture is going to change from this, and like we mentioned before, there will be a new normal, so to say, and the environment might be. And the environmental issues and the environmental improvements that we are seeing is something that is a quite hot potato at the moment. And that is something that might become an even stronger question as we now kind of start going back to this, to start defining what is a new normal. So we might actually see governments and the culture kind of pushing for a more remote kind of culture. So perhaps that is also something to think about. How do you guys see it from that perspective?
Yeah, I think, I mean, as we've all said, this is going to change a lot going forward, a lot of the way that we operate. You know, I mean, as a global business, you know, we have a lot of people that travel a lot as well. And, you know, not just locally, obviously people commuting to the office. I know, you know, that's one thing that, you know, kind of you're hinting at there, Pierre. And I think that will change. We will see more people that want to work remote. We, you know, kind of will need to, you know, change the way that we look at those things. But for me also just the global travel, you know, how often do people really need to be in the same location? You know, given that we have, you know, gone through this period, and I think it's going to be quite some time until we can all travel again. As a business, we're operating really well. So I think that will become more of a question that we should all be asking ourselves, and as individuals as well. Although I know we're all going to be desperate to get on a plane and travel somewhere as soon as we're allowed. But it is, you know, kind of it is going to change the way that we need to do a lot of things locally. You know. The office will still play an important role, but if there are subsidies by the government, you know, kind of for people, you know, to work more remotely, will we consider that? Absolutely. You know, will we want everyone to work remotely and not have offices? I doubt it. You know, just echoing kind of what Marie and Heidi were saying before, the office still plays an important role, and whilst we can operate, and we are doing so very well at this time, it, I think, is more difficult to sustain and again, and to build the relationships when you haven't met anyone and you're doing everything remotely. So there will still be some travel required. There will still be, you know, offices required to some extent. Things will definitely change. And I think if governments do put in subsidies and do try and, you know, make people rethink how they operate, how they travel and what they do, I think it can only be a good thing. The fact that, you know, the environment is benefiting from this is great.
I think the government incentive is a very good incentive. I think per se the gaming industry is already offering and is quite flexible with remote working already. And I would say, I don't know about you, Heidi and Fiona, but with us, if I had to look at our employees, probably it's only about 20 or 30% of them who actually have a car. Mm-hmm. Most of them live in the area and walk to the office. But I would see how that subsidy would really benefit the environment in Malta, because when looking at Malta, there are a lot of companies who have no form of remote working, and it will be a very good incentive for them to start offering that to their employees, for sure. Mm.
No, I ran a report actually a couple of days ago to see how many people in our offices, and especially Malta, where this proposal is being planned for. We have over half of our workforce in Malta, where we have 250 people living at a walking distance. But yes, I think it's a fantastic incentive, and I think it will be used to some extent. But if we should really, really make use of this situation and the good things that come out of it, I think it should be and again, Malta has a strong culture of individuals driving their car. So to break that culture and the way of living the daily life, taking the advantage of the situation to break that up a little bit as well, install bicycle panes next to, make it easier for open air transports. So as to, sometimes for me, walking 15 minutes to the office, it's actually, I could see the one car outside my house and I'm still before it to the office and the car is still behind me. So we clearly see that driving is not the most efficient thing. And obviously it's not good for the nature. So if there are other things than just giving relief packages to incentives, not driving, I think there is so much more that can be done for people's health and expectations, not taking your one person in a car driving to work every day, but install, like in Sweden, Amsterdam, Holland, you see so much bicycles. Make that more of a people's daily life, especially with 300 days of sun. There's no real reason as to not use the bike. Obviously, now it's very dangerous because the infrastructure is not set up for it. But I think that there is more things to be done than just starting not having people going to the office, but going to the office in a smarter way as well.
That's such an interesting perspective, Heidi. Not just stay at home, but let's actually use our bodies to transport ourselves instead of using cars, because that's kind of been a little bit like non-existent in Malta, in the sense that you don't really see that many bikers. I think the government is actually doing some initiatives on that note. In the infrastructure that is being built, there are more bike lanes at the moment that are being built to kind of alleviate being able to take a bike. And I think that's kind of where it starts, right? It has to start from the government allowing this infrastructure to exist in the first place, and then let that trickle down into the culture. Guys, we are getting a lot of interesting questions, and we won't be able to answer all of them, but I just want to bring up one question here from Marcus Honey, who is asking, do you see your company work from home policies changing going forward for good? And feel free to give a short answer each, starting with Heidi.
I think we need to start living it, to see and listen to the people. What are the requests? Do everyone want to start working from home full time? Or do people feel more efficient working a couple of days per month from home? How should it be set up? If I really need that person in the office, she's always sitting over there, can I reach her the same way? Like, what's the communication around that? I think that we need to actually experience this a little bit before it's setting. I have no prepared new guidelines for us at this point, because I don't know how that is actually going to pan out in real life. So coming back to the offices, and again, organically, like a soft launch, those people that really want to go back to the offices, to some extent, they're already there. So that we have those that really want to be in the office. We have those that before Corona wanted to work more from home. In some extent, we have always been flexible. We might become even more flexible. But I can't say that we can probably keep the policy that we have, or framework, as I would like to call it, being more flexible. But again, it can't harm us in the sense that now we don't know exactly where everyone are at this time. If we're going to have a group meeting and someone decides that I'm working from home today, that's not going to be super efficient. But to some extent, yes, it will change. But I think that we need to live in it to see how it actually affects us.
Okay, Marie?
I think when looking at the policy we have, it already is quite open in allowing that. But I think it's not just a matter of having a new remote working policy. I mean, this also, and we've learned this in the last 2 months. I think working remotely comes with it needs to be implemented with a number of other initiatives which need to be implemented in parallel. Like, are we managing performance effectively? Do our managers and leaders have the right skill, the right level of skill to manage teams remotely? Is the trust there? Are we dealing with our low performers, the people who we can't trust to work remotely? So there are various different aspects that need to be considered in being open and approving people, because it's not just a matter of, having a request. I always like to say, first of all, flexibility comes both ways. It's not just the employer giving. And secondly, there needs to be an understanding between the manager and the employee, and vice versa, that, there is a level of expectation, and that level of expectation will be there regardless. So the policy needs to work with so many other things that need to be implemented from an organizational perspective. In my opinion, if there is both focus, then yes, the flexibility can open up and the working from home policy can change.
And Fiona?
Yep, I agree with what Marie's just said as well. We already do have a very flexible policy in place, and I think we will see an increase in the requests that we do get. But again, how we handle those requests will need to be, kind of the way that we have done in the past. As Marie said, making sure that then, kind of the managers know, how to actually deal with that, because it puts a lot of pressure on the managers managing people remotely as well, because it's a very different form of management. So as long as us as a business, we make sure that we've got the tools, the training, the support, and those types of things in place, then the policy itself won't need to change. But I think that the flexibility in our approach to that, it certainly will.
Great. We have another comment and a follow-up question to that comment as well from Eva Kraskova. Krasowska. I'm sorry, I'm butchering the name. Who is saying that there's so many benefits to remote work. I hope to see more positive change towards that rather than falling back into the old ways. And then there is a question to that as well, which is maybe there is a way to think of new engagement opportunities besides the office space to create remote work more acceptable. Mm-hmm. Do you think, is there any thoughts on that?
I think we've made a step forward for sure. If I look at the skeptical people in maybe our organization and people that I've worked with in the past, now that they've been forced to test this setup up, they actually have a lot of good things to say about it. So having them experience this situation in a positive way will definitely open up more opportunity for remote work. I think what we need to keep in mind is that the reality of working remotely when things get back to a new normal will be different, because some people will be in the office and maybe a few people will be working remotely, and that will be another change that we need to get used to, another change that we need to adapt to. So there will be a process to that. I mean, it will not be the same situation as we are living right now. That's for sure not.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
Great.
Thanks. Marie's covered that one for us.
Straight to the point. Very good, very good. And on that note as well, we mentioned early on, Heidi, that this happened very, very quickly overnight, but it will be a gradual process to kind of return back to the office as well. Now, one part of that is that some people are more comfortable than others to return to the office. They are in different stages in their own way of dealing with the situation. Some are excited to get back to the office right away. Others are very cautious. They might have even some respiratory challenges, so they want to be more careful, or they might be in certain risk group. How do you deal with the different process that different employees will have in this situation when it comes to asking your employees to return to the office?
I think it's a mix of the company approach and flexibility towards the employees, but also local guidelines play a very big part here. So again, Sweden is open to a very large extent. London went from being mostly open to entirely locked down. Malta, and the same for Poland, but at very early stage. We have a few people in that office coming in regularly. In Malta, again, where this is the biggest challenge, because obviously we have our biggest team here, and Malta is on a semi-lockdown. And just as the government started announcing that there will be some releases, we had 200%, 300% more people coming into the office just because they want to, and they see the light in the tunnel and they want to be there, which is a fantastic thing. That's already starting the organic coming back to the office, so which we fully allow. But then again, from the company side, how do we manage wiping, sanitizers, social distancing? So if we have 20 people in a space for 300, then at this point we're still fine. We are now working on a exit strategy for ourselves. What do we need to have in place when people start coming in? I'm losing what I'm about to say, but what we would be looking at, and now in hindsight, how we all went back, or how we all went home, started off with someone having been flying in from Japan. How do we handle this case? So it was very much case by case. Someone is pregnant, send that person home. Someone is worried, living with a father or mother that's in a risk group. Someone has flown in from northern Italy. So we all had those case by case, but then we had the majority still in the office. And this started to sort of simmer, and more people went home. I think that we are looking at the same way, only a reversed comeback. So the first people that left, living with vulnerable people, being pregnant, being worried, or being exposed to someone having the virus, those would probably be the last people to come back into the office. Whereas those that really want to go back to the office are already in the offices. So it has already started.
Guys, we are running a little bit out of time here, but we have a really interesting question that I would like to bring up as the last question of today from Matthew Phillips. It's a very, very relevant question to discuss now, and it's touching a little bit on this productivity levels that we have seen actually increasing, and is this a good thing or not? So Matthew is asking, do you think that there is an expectation for employees to work longer hours, given nobody is spending time commuting and employees don't want to be seen as non-committed?
I think this is one of the scary things with this as well. Yeah. And this is one of the things that would come into parallel in the changes of guidelines in terms of remote working. I promised myself from day one, I was not going to send emails and send outs and outside of working hours. Being a working mother, I'm now sending emails early in the morning or late in the evening, which obviously then start a precedence of, oh, Heidi's sending an email, maybe I have to answer it straight away. So it's already breaking there. Sure, I could set a timer, but you know, it is the productivity is could it have an expiry date to it as well?
I don't think there's an expectation though. So I completely agree with you, Heidi. We're all seeing that, and especially at, kind of mothers, people, you need to juggle, or, other parents as well, trying to just deal with things outside of, kind of what you need to do with your families. And so that is definitely happening, but there's no expectation from employers. And I certainly know from, kind of from me and my team, we're working very, very closely with managers and making sure that we are constantly, kind of educating them and reminding them, kind of the pressures that people are facing, and, that everyone is in a very different situation. So I don't think the expectation is necessarily there, but I do think that from an individual's point of view, that they are at home, their computer is there, and so, kind of people are still checking, kind of messages and emails and various things outside of normal hours, because ordinarily they might be playing a sport, or they might be out to dinner with friends and things like that. So that then they are away then from their work. Whereas now it's very difficult to remove yourself from work. But we are, as I said, kind of making sure that we're educating managers as well as individuals that they should have a routine where they actually start work and they finish work. And once they've finished work, then don't just sit there with your phone, even if you're in front of the TV or having dinner, and, be looking at, Slack messages or emails and responding to them. You have to be more disciplined than that, and try and manage that yourself, as well as then be supported from the company in that too.
Same situation here. There is no expectation that our employees work longer hours because they are working from home. And I think this is the biggest challenge and one of my biggest worries, because when you're at home, you never leave the office. Your whole home becomes the office, and it's much harder to end your day. But as Fiona said, we are trying to educate people as much as possible, and we are giving them that level of support. But no, most importantly, I think the expectation, and this has been communicated from the start, the expectation is not there.
Yeah, I think I agree with you as well. The expectation is not there, and I can say that from a manager myself. Like, I don't expect my employees to get back to me or to work in longer hours. But I think from an employee perspective, that you can still feel that pressure at times, and perhaps for you guys as HRs, it's an important part perhaps to communicate with the employees to make sure that they don't feel that pressure perhaps in these times. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, guys. Last but not least, obviously in HR Connect, we communicate on a weekly basis between the different organizations, and to update each other on what's going on and our processes and so forth. And I mentioned this yesterday, but I think that it's a strength within the IGaming industry, especially that fierce competitors are so willing to gather around tables to share information, and you guys are obviously part of this mindset as well. Why do you think that is, that we are able to do this within the IGaming industry, to be so open with each other? Although we are competitors, but we can still be friends, and we can still sit in these discussions and share to some extent, our secrets and so forth. Why is that, and why is it so important?
I think that sharing what works with us, making Hero and Catena attractive employers as well, would also sort of reflect back good on us. So it's hard to find the best gaming company to work for, because they're all quite good. So together, by comparison, by benchmarking, by sharing is caring, we have now reached a good level and continue reaching even higher levels, because we learn from each other what is working, what is not working. And it is people that we are talking about here. And in most situations, we're looking for more or less the same kind of people to support our players, or to build our platforms, or to pay our payrolls. So for it benefits us all if the gaming industry has a good reputation for people and HR, but also obviously marketing-wise, revenue-wise.
Exactly, and as much as we're competitors, we're all in the same boat. So I think being able to support each other as individuals as well, and being able to ask questions and answer each other. Why wouldn't we be honest? Because at the end of the day, people are going to change companies. They're going to go to competitors, regardless of us talking or not. And that's just the way of the world. But meanwhile, kind of as a group, we can achieve so much more, and we can just actually support each other. And we are all so similar in a lot of ways. And there's things that we can learn from each other. And it is, for me, it's really important that we do that. Not just for our companies and for our employees, but also for us as individuals.
Yes, and also for everything that we've been doing together, especially at this time, giving money back to Richmond to food banks via HR Connect. IGen set up the campaign of getting face masks to Malta, so that we wouldn't have been able to do that ourselves.
Yes, for sure. I mean, the benefits of HR Connect have been plenty, but IGen have also really brought so many gaming levels, so many gaming companies maybe at a higher level, but together, even the impact and the influence we have on government bodies, on other aspects of the economy is much stronger if we have one voice. And I think this has been proven through HR Connect, and we're taking it, IGen are taking it at a different level, through that.
I mean, we are constantly monitoring each other anyway, so why not help each other? Like in the first days before we started closing down our offices, where are you now? How's your policy? Are you closing today or yesterday or tomorrow at lunch? Like it's so fast. So,
but then none of that is a secret though, either. There's very little that we deal with, maybe salaries and things like that we probably aren't going to openly share, but there's very little that's actually secret. So therefore, kind of it's perfectly normal and okay to share everything else.
Yeah, exactly.
And especially where we stumble in the dark, like third country nationals or ID applications. We have a stronger voice together with Gaming Malta and the authorities.
I think we're all unique in our own way. We have different leadership teams, different cultures, but there are so many things we can work together on to have that stronger kind of belonging as well.
Yeah, I think so as well. And together we are stronger as an industry as well. And the industry is facing certain challenges that are shared amongst the various companies. And and Malta presents various challenges that is shared between the organizations. And it's only together that we can solve these challenges in the best way possible. Guys, we have so many interesting comments in general, and I don't have time to read them because we are just about we have already run out of time. But I urge all of you to check in, go into the conference platform and read the comments after this chat, because there's a lot of interesting things to read up on, and I'm sure the people who are commenting would love you guys to see this as well. Thank you so much for an amazing second panel together. I feel that we can talk for hours and hours and hours on end, and I have a feeling that it's not the last time that we do this either. Marie, Heidi, Fiona, thank you so much for today, and I wish you all a great day.
Thank you very much, Pierre.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Right,
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye.
We are followed up by the CMO panel, which is starting in also a couple of minutes, so hang on. Okay, thank you all.